पोलिसांना सहकार्य करा, कृपया अजिबात धावपळ करू नका. 1 तासभर या ठिकाणी पालखी थांबणार आहे. पोलीस मित्रांना सहकार्य करायचंय. 15 दिवस पालखी समवेत त्यांना त्रास सहन करावा लागतोय. कृपया सहकार्य करायचंय. पोलीस यंत्रणा अतिशय चांगल्या पद्धतीने आपल्या सेवेसाठी सज्ज आहे. सहकार्य करायचंय. धन्यवाद दादा. या ठिकाणी पाण्याचा एक बॉक्स द्या रे गाडीमध्ये तिथं. एकदा जल्लोष करा. कुंडली कवरदा विठ्ठल महाराज की जय. जगद्गुरु संत श्रेष्ठ तुकाराम महाराज की जय. सर्व भाविक भक्तांचं ग्रँडवे हाऊसिंग सोसायटीच्या वतीनं मनापासून हार्दिक स्वागत. सकाळी 10 वाजल्यापासून या ठिकाणी फराळाचं वाटप, वारकरी बांधवांना साबण, त्याचप्रमाणे पाण्याच्या बाटलीचं वाटप चालू आहे. विनंती, ज्या भाविकांना या ठिकाणी या सेवेचा लाभ घ्यायचा त्यांनी घ्यायचा आहे. अनेक दिंड्या क्रमांक या ठिकाणी चालू झालेल्या दिंड्या प्रमुखांना एक श्रीफळ, पाण्याची बाटली आणि एक साबण देऊन सन्मानित केलं जावं अशा प्रकारची विनंती. प्रत्येक दिंडी प्रमुखाला या ठिकाणी सन्मानित करावं अशा प्रकारची विनंती. कार्यकर्ते, सगळे युवा कार्यकर्ते, सुदामराव कुंजीर, या ठिकाणी सगळ्या मानाच्या दिंड्या पालखीच्या ज्या पाठीमागून चाललेल्या आहेत त्यांना जावं. प्रत्येक दिंडी प्रमुखाला एक श्रीफळ, पाण्याची बाटली आणि साबण देऊन या ठिकाणी सन्मानित करायचं आहे.
So ready for the part 3? Let's start. So as you can see, the next package which we will be installing is again Binutils. Is it a typo? Is it a mistake? Not really. We already installed Binutils. Let's consider that as a pass 1. And when now we are again reinstalling, that means recompiling and then we are installing. Let's call it as a pass 2. After that, you will find we are reinstalling or recompiling GCC again. So this is not a typo. So basically we are again reinstalling same Binutils package, and then after installing Binutils we'll be installing GCC again. So if now you understand this concept which I'm about to explain, like why we are reinstalling these two packages, if you understand this, you understand 80% of LFS. Let's start. I have prepared one table. We have a host system here, which is our CentOS 6 pass 1. You can see Binutils, GCC and Glibc. These are the three things we installed initially. Let's call it as a pass 1. Next is toolchain. Basically we are preparing a toolchain. As you know that LFS is divided into 3 parts. First, preparing a host system. Then the second, preparing a toolchain. So we prepared a host system in our first video. Then in part 2, we built our toolchain. And in part 3, now what we are doing, we are actually adjusting our toolchain the way we want. We are actually modifying our toolchain. So let's discuss it one by one. First of all, when we were installing Binutils package, the first package for our operating system, for our LFS, that time what we had done, we used a compiler, linker and loader. That means Binutils, GCC and libraries, which is Glibc. So Binutils, GCC, Glibc, we used of our host operating system, right, which is CentOS 6. And then by using these 3 tools, also called as toolchain, by using host systems toolchain, we compiled our Binutils, the initial package. So we compiled a source code of Binutils, then we installed the source Binutils package contents, and what we got out of it, there are a couple of binaries we got, but as we have discussed earlier, we are mostly interested in AS and LD. So we got our AS and LD inside our tools directory, which is what? Which is our toolchain directory. /tool means /tool is a symlink to the /mnt LFS tools, as you know. After Binutils, we installed GCC. So for GCC also, what we have done, we used Binutils, GCC and Glibc of our host operating system. Correct? And out of that, we got the GCC inside tools directory. That means up to this point, we have AS and LD provided by Binutils, then we have GCC as well. So as of now, we have AS, LD and GCC, and we used toolchain of our host operating system to make these 3 binaries. Clear? That was our pass 1. Next we continued and we installed or compiled glibc, which is a shared library. The most important one is the libc.so. We talked about this library, right? So come again. So we compiled our glibc source package with the help of Binutils, GCC and glibc of a host system, and we got the libc.so. So in general, when we finished our pass 1 of these 3 packages, when we finish our pass 1, what did we get? We get AS, LD, GCC and libc.so. These 4 binaries we received by using the toolchain provided by the host operating system. Clear? That means the host operating system has a direct relation or direct presence inside these 4 binaries, isn't it? Because we use the entire tool chain of host operating system. So the resultant binaries which we have now are actually affected by the host operating system's presence. Host operating system must have some influence on these 4 binaries. The mitigation is recompile the same Binutils, GCC like these tools, recompile them with our compiler, with our glibc, with our Binutils. That's the only mitigation, that's the only resolution to this problem, to avoid the influence of a host operating system. But what's the problem of having an influence? See, if the resultant operating system, suppose you are compiling a source code, your host operating system's toolchain is of 64-bit, right? And you are compiling a source code with that, and the resultant binary which you are creating is again a 64-bit Intel architecture, then there should not be any issue. But if your host operating system is 64-bit, obviously then your tool chain of operating system will be again Intel 64-bit, but the resultant binary which you are creating through your LFS TGT, you are mentioning there that create the resultant binary package from this source code is PPC, for PPC architecture. Then it creates a problem, isn't it? But the 2 architectures are altogether different. There it creates a problem. So to avoid such issues, what we will be doing now, we will be having a pass 2. That means we will be recompiling and reinstalling our Binutils package, same Binutils package which we installed earlier here in pass 1, we will be again reinstalling it here. Now what will happen when you will start compiling this Binutils package, we will make one change in our configure. Last time we didn't mention, for example, you are compiling a source code with a GCC. We just use the command called a GCC. So when you hit a command GCC through configure, what happened? It called the host operating system GCC. Clear? This time what we will be doing, when we will be compiling a Binutils, we will give a specific input to our configure command that instead of using the GCC, which is inside /usr bin of host operating system, use tools bin GCC, which is ours. Getting? That means what? Obviously, the resultant binary will be made from Binutils and GCC of our tool chain. So the resultant binaries which we will be getting, that means AS and LD. Now this is the pass 2. When we will be compiling Binutils with our tool chain, the resultant binary which we will be getting, which is AS and LD from Binutils, that will not be affected by host operating system at all. Those binaries will be pure binaries. So we will again recompile our GCC, same GCC which we compiled in the past one. We will again recompile it with our ASLD GCC by using our ASLD GCC and libc.so from tools. We will recompile it, and the resultant binary which will be getting, that is GCC, which will be again not affected by the host operating system, which will be pure. Okay, so far we got AS, LD and GCC, those are not affected. Okay, now check out the next packages and you'll be surprised that you won't find a glibc package for pass 2. We are not recompiling the glibc. What's the reason? Think. Why not? And the reason is when we installed Binutils first, we got AS and LD. Then we reinstalled GCC, installed GCC, not reinstalled. We installed GCC, we got GCC out of it, right? So we have AS and LD and GCC. So when we started compiling glibc, we were already having our AS and LD and GCC ready, which is ours. Getting me? So the resultant libc.so binary which we created was not affected by the host operating system. Getting me? Come again. When we installed our first Binutils and GCC, after that we installed or compiled our glibc. Obviously, when we first time itself compiled the glibc, we use AS, LD and GCC from our tool chain, not from the host operating system. That is the reason there is no pass2 for glibc. Isn't it amazing the way LFS guys, the LFS maintainers has designed the book is amazing. First we got the Binutils package, then we got the GCC and glibc. We compile them with host operating systems toolchain so that our toolchain, as of now the toolchain what we have in through the pass1 is affected by the host operating system. To recover from that bad influence, we recompile same source code of GCC and Binutils, and the resultant binaries which we got in pass2 are the purest binaries. But when we were compiling our glibc first time, that glibc's libc.so like binaries were not influenced by the host operating system. The way these steps has been designed and all, when the first time I read all of this, I was like simply amazed by these steps. Hats off to you guys, hats off to you guys. So without wasting our time, let's jump on the computer and install Binutils, then GCC, and there are some debugging tools we need to install. After we install all these 5 to 6 packages, our toolchain will be ready. Clear? Let's do it.
तसंच आपल्या महाराष्ट्राच्या कानामध्ये शेतकरी राहतो मोठ्या संख्येने न्यूजचे प्रचार करू पारिवारिक स्वागत करतो. सर्वांचे आदर करतो. काकू काका आमचं पुन्हा सरकार शहराचं स्वागत करतो. काकांनी फार कसे घेतले सकाळपासून, त्याचप्रमाणे अवतरे काकांनी पण फार कसे घेतले. माझ्या तुझे काकांनी पण सकाळपासून आणि आमच्या सर्वांच्या युवकांचे युवा नेते स्वागत.
So the first package which we need to compile is Binutils. Let's extract it. It will take some time. Let's create a temporary directory. Let's go inside the Binutils build and run the command configure. So let me copy it from my LFS book. So this is the configure command. So you can easily notice the changes. The first change is, instead of using only a GCC command, we use the LFS TGT GCC. That means the GCC which we have compiled. And as we know, Binutils package also provides the AR library, AR and ranlib like binaries. So we have used those binaries which we have compiled in our first pass of Binutils. Next, prefix tools as it is, with libpath as it is, toolslib, and with sysroot. So that's our configure. Next command is obvious, our make command. It will take some time, so let me fast forward it. Next is make install. We need to do some arrangements. Once we clean the LD, we need to again hit the command make. Hitting make, so it will take a very long time, almost 11 minutes on my machine. So let me fast forward it. We have to do some changes. That is, and change in the sense we are making a symlink GCC to CC or CC to GCC. Both are same. So you call either a CC or you call a GCC. It will be calling a binary which is a GCC. Then let's test it. Whether the program is getting compiled with our binary or not, with our GCC. So CC is a symlink to GCC, so obviously it will be calling the GCC. So the program has been compiled, so that means everything is proper. Let's remove the GCC temporary directory which is GCC build and the actual extracted package directory, which is GCC 5.2.0. Next package is Pcl Core. As I said earlier, we need to install some debugging packages. These packages are not necessary to install, but it's good to install. That's right. Even if you don't install these packages, Tcl Core like packages, Tcl Core, Deja GNU, check like packages, which we'll be installing now. Even if you don't install it, all good. But I will recommend to install it. So this is the first package. Make. Let me fast forward. Done with the make. Obviously the make install. We have to do some arrangements, that is giving a permission, the right permissions. These are TCL package related arrangements. Let's delete the extracted package directory and move to the next package. Next package is expect. We have copied the configure file, or we can say we have taken a backup of the original configure file. We renamed it as a configure.org. Next, the set command. As you can see, configure, the prefix will be tools again. Done with the configure. This is the configure which we used. Bit tools is equal to lib path and all. Going next, it's the make. Make install. As usual, will be coming out of the directory and we will delete it. You must have noticed that we are not creating the temporary directories here before compiling the actual package, because these are the very small packages which will not create much temporary files. So even if you create the temporary directories or even if you don't, it does not really matter. Next package is Deja GNU. We just extracted the package, the configure, and the make install. Let's come out of the extracted package and delete the extracted package directory, which is Deja GNU. Next one is check. The configure, again prefix is equal to tools. The make. And the make install. This is it. So let's delete the check extracted directory. and this is it for this video. In next video we'll be installing the remaining packages. So this is Yogesh Babar signing off. Thank you.
गावचे सरपंच अध्यक्ष महिने माहिती संपर्क साधायचा आहे. आपण खूप जाऊ सरपंच पंढरपूरला काय हरकत नाही. चला एक दिवस आपण सगळे काढू.